Today we are going to study liver cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is defined as the histological development of regenerative nodules surrounded by fibrous bands, that is fibrosis, in response to chronic liver injury. So whenever there is chronic injury to the liver modifies its architecture, and that modified architecture results in regenerative formation of regenerative nodules, right, and which are surrounded by fibrous bands. I'm going to talk about this process at the end, so if you want to learn about it, then you skip to the end of the video, right? So definition, you have to remember that what is cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is the formation of regenerative nodules surrounded by fibrous bands. So these two terms, regenerative nodules and fibrous bands, that is fibrosis, is important. So cirrhosis has no very much defined definition, but we can remember it by having regenerative nodules and having fibrous bands, right? Why does cirrhosis happens? Whenever there is chronic liver injury, whenever the liver is having chronic insult, then it goes into a state called as cirrhosis. It goes into a different architectural state which is called as liver cirrhosis, right? So this liver cirrhosis has two main features, or it leads to two main sequelae. Those are portal hypertension and end stage liver disease. Portal hypertension is the major sequelae of cirrhosis, liver cirrhosis. We will learn about this portal cirrhosis in the next video. So this is the healthy liver. It looks like this, smooth and shiny. Whereas these regenerative nodules, the nodular structure over the liver, these are called as scar tissues, the burned out tissues, right? The tissues which are left out after having liver cell necrosis and inflammations of the liver cells, continued inflammation of the liver cells, necrosis, apoptosis of liver cells. It leads to formation of scars, right? The fibrous bands around the healthy remaining hepatocytes, and those looks like these nodules. Even you can feel them when you palpate the liver over the abdomen, right? Then you can also feel these nodules. Then classification. First, morphological classification. Liver cirrhosis can be divided into micronodular, macronodular, and mixed. Micronodular, as the name is telling, micronodules, small nodules, less than 3 mm. If the nodules are less than 3 mm, and this micronodular cirrhosis is characteristic feature of alcoholic liver cirrhosis. Then macronodular cirrhosis, right, when the liver is having nodules which are greater than 3 mm, example chronic viral hepatitis, right? So in those cases there will be macronodular cirrhosis, and there are other conditions where we find both types, and that is called as mixed cirrhosis, both micro and macronodules. So this is something like, this is how micronodules and macronodules, the nodules will be big in size, whereas micronodules, the nodules will be smaller in size. So you can see here, this is the liver and this is spleen. So spleen, this is liver and this is spleen. The liver is here, and the spleen has enlarged, the liver has enlarged, and the liver under the microscope, it looks like this, small nodules. Then etiological classification. So this cirrhosis, based on the cause, it can be divided into many types. We are not going to study them anyways. Alcoholic cirrhosis, if it is caused by the alcohol, we call that liver cirrhosis, that alcoholic cirrhosis. We have already talked about this. It is also called as Lennox cirrhosis, right? Because it was discovered, it was detailed by Lennox. So it is also called as Lennox cirrhosis, right? It is most common cause is alcohol for cirrhosis, and alcoholic cirrhosis is also most common complication. Then post-necrotic cirrhosis or viral cirrhosis, right? After having chronic viral hepatitis B and C, person develops viral cirrhosis, that is 10%. Then biliary cirrhosis, we have already talked about this biliary cirrhosis in autoimmune hepatitis. And then we have pigment cirrhosis. Because of hemochromatosis, the liver goes into cirrhotic stage, so that is also common. Apart from this, If somebody is having congenital diseases, liver diseases like Wilson disease, alpha antitrypsin deficiencies, right, they can also lead to cirrhosis. Cardiac cirrhosis, because of the failing heart, the liver also develops, the liver is also damaged, and that is called as cardiac cirrhosis, right? Cirrhosis because of the cardia. Then Indian childhood cirrhosis, right, it's a separate topic by itself. When the very young children, they develop cirrhosis. Cirrhosis autoimmune hepatitis, because of autoimmune hepatitis, right? Cirrhosis in non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, people who are obese, people who have um, insulin resistance, they develop liver disorders and ultimately cirrhosis. And there are certain other cirrhosis types like metabolic, infectious cirrhosis, and cirrhosis due to GI infiltrations, other infiltrative diseases like amyloidosis and all those things, right? And then we have cryptogenic cirrhosis, because of no cause, sometimes the liver goes into cirrhosis. So these are the causes, some of the causes, right? Alcoholism is the number one, then viral infections, then non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, then hemochromatosis, then copper accumulation, Wilson's disease, then because of drug-induced hepatitis, right? So all these things, they can lead to liver cirrhosis. Excuse me. Pathogenesis. So this you can see the normal structure of liver, and these are the normal the arrangement of the liver cells, right, in lobule fashion, in a hexagonal fashion, lobule fashion. And so in a cirrhosed liver, the hepatic parenchyma and the hepatocytes, they are replaced by a fibrous septa, by fibrous bands, and these fibrous bands encapsulates the remaining hepatocytes, and that causes the nodule formation. So fibrosis is described as encapsulation or replacement of injured tissue by a collagenous scar. Yes, you are right. It is the deposition of fibrin and the collagen in the liver parenchyma that leads to fibrous bands, which is called as fibrosis, right? So that scarring or fibrosis is one and the same thing. It results from the prolonged normal wound healing response. See, when liver has good regenerative capability, but that capability, when surpassed, then it results in fibrosis. It results in fibrogenesis inside the liver cells and the formation of more fibrous tissue in the liver, leading to its scarring, right? And this particular phenomena is similar, almost similar as that in the lungs also, right? In lungs also, in restrictive lung diseases, the phenomena is more or less the same. Clinical features, they are very important, because many liver disease people, they have these liver cirrhosis as a chronic sequelae, as the end stage, right? So most of the people, they are asymptomatic, and still they are having a cirrhosed liver, because somehow their body is still adapting to that, or somehow the liver is still able to maintain its functions, its biosynthetic functions, right? So most of the people, or in fact 40% of the people, are asymptomatic, right? Apart from this, there will be generalized symptoms of the liver diseases, for example anorexia, fatigue, weight loss, weakness, right? And some other signs of liver failure like jaundice, encephalopathy, coagulopathy. We have already talked about the liver failure, right? So I have included some of the pics for you to easy remembrance of these symptoms, because they are because these symptoms are from head to toe, they are very much. So neurological CNS, you can remember there will be hepatic encephalopathy. We have already talked about hepatic encephalopathy, right? The most characteristic feature of hepatic encephalopathy is deliriums, delusions, and hysterexis, flapping tremors. See, this flapping tremors, the hands and other parts will be having tremors, head will be having tremors. Then gastrointestinal, fetor hepaticus, the person's breath will have a sweetish smell, fetor hepaticus. There will be anorexia, there will be nausea, vomiting, dull abdominal pain. Then we have skin. In skin, we will be having jaundice over the skin and the scleral membranes. Then spider angiomas, right? We will see picture of spiderangiomas. These are nothing but the increased telangiectasias or arteriolar dilatations over the skin. Then we have palmar erythema, right? Redness over the hand. Purpura, petechiae, small dot-like structures, right? Apart from this, as we have learned in the classes about the enterohepatic circulation, right? So because of the portal hypertension, there will be esophageal varices over the esophagus and the stomach, and these esophageal varices will sometimes, or when increased, when the portal hypertension is too much increased, then they will lead to hematemesis, the blood vomiting, right? And if the leaking of blood is slow and gradual, it can lead to melena. Melena is the RBCs in the blood, right? Then we have caput medusae, the dilated abdominal veins, right? The abdominal veins will be dilated because of the congestion, because of the portal hypertension. Then we have ascites, right? Because of the portal hypertension and the congestion, it will lead to leaking of fluid from the veins, from the portal vein into the peritoneal cavity, and that will lead to the accumulation of fluid in the peritoneal cavity, which is ascites. So ascites is the main feature of portal hypertension, and portal hypertension arises because of liver cirrhosis, right? Then reproductive, we have testicular atrophy, right? Because of the estrogenemia in the body, right? And that estrogenemia will also leads to gynecomastia in males and amenorrhea in females, right? Then we have the kidney will also be deranged. We'll be having a hepatorenal syndrome. Shortly we'll talk about this. Then hematological abnormalities will be there because the liver produces thrombopoietin. There will be thrombocytopenia. Liver produces various proteins responsible for iron metabolism, like hepaticidin, like transferrin. So these proteins will be deranged and it will lead to anemia, right? Moreover, because of the cirrhosis, the person might be having blood leaking into the stomach, right? Sometimes as hematemesis, sometimes as melena, sometimes through the mouth, sometimes through the anus. So that can also lead to anemia. Then coagulation disorders, because liver produces many intrinsic, extrinsic factors, and also vitamin K is synthesized by liver. So coagulation disorders. Then splenomegaly, right? Because of the congestion of the portal vein, because portal vein supplies to the spleen also, the spleen will also be congested and it also will be enlarged, splenomegaly. Then hyperbilirubinemia, very much understandable, right? Because of the deranged liver functions, there will be increased bilirubin levels in the blood, hyperbilirubinemia, which will manifest as jaundice. Hyponatremia, the sodium ion will be less in the body because of the third volume, because of the ascites and all metabolic derangements. There will be hyponatremia, right? Decreased sodium levels in the blood. Then cardiovascular, cardiomyopathies, because the liver supplies, or liver gives hepatic vein to the inferior vena cava and to the heart. So because there is congestion in the hepatic vein also because of the cirrhosis, so it will lead to right heart failure also. In heart failure also, cardiomyopathies, as a result the heart will also be enlarged. Peripheral edema, right? Peripheral edemas will be there. So these are the many signs and symptoms because of the cirrhosis. So one more chart: general malaise, fatigue, anorexia, right? Swollen abdomen, legs, edema, nosebleed or bleeding from mouth, jaundice, hand tremors. Physical findings will include skin pigmentations, right? Skin pigmentation, there will be dark pigmentations, there will be yellow pigmentations. Then xanthomas, right? We already know xanthomas. What are xanthomas, right? Xanthomas are nodules of cholesterol. Then spider angiomas, see these spider angiomas. Then finger clubbing, there will be clubbing of fingers, right? Then caput medusae, these are the caput medusae, the dilated abdominal veins. Gynecomastia, fever, right? Halitosis, halitosis, bad breath because of the fetor hepaticus, because of the sulfur compounds in the intestine and their not so proper metabolism, their not so proper disposal by the liver. It will lead to halitosis. Jaundice, ascites, excuse me, pancreas, it is wrongly placed here. Spleen, splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, ascites, palmarisma, edema. Right. So these are the clinical features which you can go through, right, if you want to. I have pasted them for your this thing for your easy understanding. Right, jaundice. Why? What is the etiology for jaundice? Spider angiomata, nodular liver, splenomegaly, ascites, caput medusae. Right, prominent veins radiating from umbilicus. Then Baumgarten syndrome. This Baumgarten syndrome is when you, with the help of a stethoscope, you hear the epigastric region. You will find a vascular murmur. Right, the blood flowing through them is congested, so that will lead to vascular murmur. Then palmarisma, white nails. Right, white nails is also characteristic feature of cirrhosis. Palmarisma, finger clubbing, right? Dipterans contractures, there will be contractures of the hand. You can have a look, especially in alcoholic people, these dipteran contractures are found. Then gynecomastia, right? Hypogonadism, flapping tremors, fetor hepaticus, anorexia. You can have a look over them. So this is how a spider navy looks like, right? Spider navy, dilated arterioles. See, this is how a palmar erythema looks like. Erythema means redness, palmar means palm. Ascites, see the abdomen is so much enlarged, it is filled with water, the pectoral cavity is filled with water, right? Even the umbilicus has herniated out in this photograph. Then ascites, another case of ascites, jalodhar, which is called a jalodhar in Ayurveda, right? Legs edema, pitting edema, see the pit is formed when you press it, pitting edema. Then gastric varices, esophageal varices, esophageal and gastric varices. So you can see gastric varices here, the swollen part. See these swollen parts, right? These are esophageal varices. See the reddening and the swelling of the, or the protuberance of the veins is esophageal, these esophageal varices. See here, right here also. These esophageal varices, they can rupture and that can lead to the blood in the esophagus, and that can lead to vomiting of blood, right? Hematemesis. These are varices over the abdomen. Over the abdomen you can see the veins, swelled up veins. Esophageal varices, one more photograph. See this redness, the erythema in the esophagus, right? And see these esophageal varices, these small protuberances. So you can see all these structures. You can get all these photographs in endoscopy reports. When there is endoscopy, a tube is put into the mouth with a camera on its tip, and it sees the esophagus and the stomach. It is called as endoscopy. That is called as esophageal endoscopy, right? Then what are the lab findings? So all the liver functions will be deranged. You can very well imagine there will be deranged aminotransferases, AST, ALT will be deranged. Their alkaline phosphatases will be deranged. GGTs will be deranged. Bilirubin will be high. Albumin will be less. Prothrombin time will be increased. Globulins will be increased, right? Hyponatremia will be there, right? Thrombocytopenia will be there. Leukopenia will be there. So everything pertaining to liver and some other like thrombocytopenia and leukopenia will also be seen. Apart from that, the easiest way to find out liver cirrhosis is ultrasound, USG, right? Ultrasonography or CT scans or MRIs, they show the architecture of the liver, and by that we confirm that the liver has gone into liver cirrhosis. Very easy to diagnose. Liver biopsy, however, is the gold standard. Liver biopsy, we take a small tissue sample from the liver and we study that liver tissue sample for the hepatic globules and the scarring of the hepatic globules under the microscope, and we find out, because of the increased fibrosis, we find out that the liver has gone into cirrhotic stage. There are many tests for finding out cirrhosis. One of the easiest tests is the measurement of hyaluronic acid in the patient's blood serum, right? And that can also tell us about the. There are many new tests, fibro scans, right? But they are beyond our scope of understanding. So I'm not going into details of those, but you have to know that it is very easy to find out liver cirrhosis by ultrasonography, right? Then how to stage the cirrhosis. So liver cirrhosis was and is also staged by Child-Pugh classification. However, there are new models like MELD, modified end-stage liver disease. A new we have new criteria to stage the cirrhosis, but however we will study about the standard or the old classification of Child-Pugh classification, right, where class A represents compensated liver. Well compensated liver means liver which is able to maintain its biosynthetic functions, and class B is when it is partially decompensated, and C, class C, when it is completely decompensated. So based on these classes we will stage, based on these stages, based on these tagging, we will prognose the person. We will do the prognosis for the person. So how this Child-Pugh classification is done? So what we do in Child-Pugh classification, we take the LFT values and we try to find out the scores based on these LFT values. So albumin, if albumin is 3.5 grams per deciliter, we give the patient as 1 point, or if it is more than that. If it is less than 3.5 up to 2.8, we give 2 points. If it is less than 2.8, we give 3 points. Similarly, bilirubin, if it is 2 or less than 2, we give 1 point. If it is between 2 to 3, we give 2 points. If it is greater than 3, we give 3 points. Similarly, coagulation type, this is increased prothrombin time, normally is 12 seconds. So if it is increased by less than by 4 seconds, for example, it is like 15, right, or 16 or 13, right, then we give 1 point. If it is increased by 4 to 6 seconds, then we give 2 points. If it is increased by more than 6 seconds, we give 3 points. Similarly, we take the abdomen, we take the ascites. If there is no ascites, we give 1 point. If that is mild ascites, 2 points, and moderate to severe, we will give 3 points. Ascites, we will learn about ascites in the clinical classes. In the examination classes, we will learn how we can label ascites as mild, moderate, or severe. Then encephalopathy, the hepatic encephalopathy, if it is present, we give it is grade 3 to 4. Right, there is a staging system for encephalopathy also, where grade 3 and grade 4 represents coma, and grade 3 represents marked delirium, right, and grade 1 represents only subtle changes, and grade 2, I think we have already talked about encephalopathy. So grade 1 and grade 2, if it is between grade 1 and grade 2, we give 2 points. If it is grade 3 and 4, we give 3 points, right? So if the total score, suppose a person is falling into this category, in the first category, then we give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The person has got 5 points. So if it is less than 7, that is 5 points, we classify the person into category A, the classification A, right, the Child-Pugh classification A. If the person has got 7 to 9 points, suppose somebody has got albumin into this range and coagulation into this range and say encephalopathy into this range, so we will add 2 plus 3 plus 2, right, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so 7 points, 7 to 9 points, it is child classification B, then child classification C. So based on this classification, whether the person is falling into classification A, the category A, category B, or category C, right? If it is category A, the class is A, the 1 year survival is 100%, and the person might survive for 2 years. 85% of the person has chances of surviving. If it is B, the 1 year survival is 80%, and the person might survive for 2 years for 60%, right? And C, the person might survive for 2 years, the chances are only 35%. This classification is modified in many ways, right? But you should know how classification, how prognosis is found in how prognosis is found in liver cirrhosis case by Child-Pugh classification. Then complications are very important in liver cirrhosis, because liver cirrhosis leads to many other things, many other sequelae, right? Many other sequels, many other upcoming complications. In fact, excuse me please, in fact the liver cirrhosis is having liver cirrhosis manifests as complications only. So this liver cirrhosis, the major complications of liver cirrhosis are portal hypertension. Portal hypertension is very important topic, and we will talk about this in next video. So portal hypertension is the first complication. The portal hypertension, the main feature of portal hypertension is ascites. Most of the people of liver diseases, chronic liver disease, they come with a swollen abdomen with water inside, and that is called as ascites. So portal hypertension is the first complication, first important complication. Then hepatorenal syndrome. Hepatorenal syndrome. Then third is hepatic encephalopathy. We have already talked about this hepatic encephalopathy, where there is confusions, that there is CNS derangements. Then coagulopathies. Bone disease is another important complication of cirrhosis, right? Because the liver is involved in the metabolism of calcium and other vitamins, right? Vitamin D. So it leads to the liver derangement, leads to bone diseases. Very important. A person suffering with cirrhosis should be evaluated for bones also. It can lead to osteopenia, osteoporosis, and osteomalacia, all of them. Then hematological abnormalities, anemia, thrombocytopenia, neutropenia, and ultimately it can lead to the development of hepatocellular carcinoma, the cancer of liver. So these are the major complications. Hepatorenal syndrome is a syndrome because of the liver. Because of the liver, the kidney is unable to maintain its function. Now hepatorenal syndrome, how does it happen? Because of the portal hypertension and because of the damaged hepatocytes in liver cirrhosis, these hepatocytes, they releases certain chemical mediators which causes the dilation of the efferent arteries to the kidney. So efferent arteries are dilated. When efferent arteries are dilated, the perfusion of the kidneys, right, the blood perfusion is not proper. So the kidney is unable to maintain its function. Although there is no kidney damage, but because of the low perfusion, because of the hypoperfusion of the kidney is unable to maintain its normal function. So when kidney is unable to maintain its normal function, it will lead to the kidney will sense the RAS system will get activated, because the kidney will sense hypovolemia because of the low blood flow, because whenever the arteries are dilated, there will be less blood pressure to the kidney. That will lead to the activation of the RAS system, and the RAS system will activate the kidney, and it will cause the kidney to take more sodium and more water into the blood, and that water and sodium will go into the third spaces, right, like peritoneum, and it will cause further more ascites, and it will cause edema of the legs, generalized edema also, right? So it will lead to the accumulation of more fluid in the body, and it will also lead to the accumulation of nitrogenous waste also in the blood, right? The blood urea nitrogen levels will go up. So it will lead to a hepatorenal syndrome. The kidney will fail, although the kidney is healthy, but the kidney will fail because of the resulting liver disease. So hepatorenal syndrome is a syndrome which is acquired because of the liver cirrhosis, and the person will be having renal insufficiencies, right? So the ultimate sequelae, or the ultimate cause of death from liver cirrhosis is because of the number one, hepatic coma. The person will go into deliriums, and if not corrected, these deliriums will ultimately progress into coma, right? Hepatic coma. Second, The esophageal varices, the gastroesophageal varices caused due to portal hypertension may lead to hemorrhage and hematemesis, vomiting of the blood, or melena, right? Blood through the anal region, right? So massive gastrointestinal hemorrhage. This massive gastrointestinal hemorrhage can lead to hypovolemic shock, and person might die because of the blood loss, right? Then because of the ascites, the person is more, and because of the leukopenia also, right, the person is more susceptible to infections. So infections, because of those infections, the person might die. Hepatorenal syndrome, because of the failing kidney, the person might die. Then hepatocellular carcinoma, because of the carcinoma, the person might die, right? So the most common cause is hepatic coma, right? And the second most common cause is gastrointestinal hemorrhage. Whenever a person vomits blood, whenever the blood comes, from the mouth like a vomiting, then most of the time, in fact maximum of the time, the cause is because of the liver cirrhosis and portal hypertension. So keep studying. So let us, yeah, because some student, not some, only one student asked question about liver fibrosis. So we have to little bit go into the physiology first. So this is our beautiful liver, the very good organ. And the liver cells, the hepatocytes, they are arranged in a hexagonal fashion, which are called as hepatic lobules. So you can see these hexagons, they are nothing but the collection of various hepatocytes. They are not one cell, right? This is not one cell. This is collection of many cells. You can see it here. This is one lobule, hepatic lobule, hexagonal structure. So these liver cells, they are more or less, they are arranged in a hexagon fashion, not strict hexagon fashion, but a loose hexagon fashion. So this lobule is having many hepatocytes. You can see these dot structures, they are many hepatocytes. Or in this detailed structure, you can see, right, this is one part of this, one triangle of this. So in the center, there is this central vein, right, central vein, which drains into the hepatic vein, which becomes hepatic vein when it exits the liver. So this is the central vein, and we have this portal vein. So we already know that the liver has dual blood supply. So liver is getting blood from the hepatic artery also, and liver is also getting blood from another source, which is hepatic vein. I have already talked about this in detail in classes, right? So refer your class notes. So liver is getting one source of blood from the portal vein, right, and another source of the blood from the hepatic artery, from the abdominal artery, right? But both of these are entering into the liver but exiting as one hepatic vein, right? One hepatic vein. So this central vein will become hepatic vein. So this portal vein is coming and this hepatic artery is coming. So portal vein is also draining blood and this hepatic artery is also draining blood, right? So they are draining blood into the spaces, into the free spaces, which are called as sinusoids, right? Sinusoids, right? See, these sinusoids are different from capillaries. They are having structural difference than capillaries, or you can say they are modified capillaries. Anyways, capillaries are always modified in different organs, right? Different organs have different types of capillaries. So portal vein also drains its bloods into this space, sinusoidal space, and hepatic artery also drains its blood into this. So blood mixing is there. Portal vein is also draining because liver has dual blood supply. So both the bloods mixes and they drains ultimately into central vein. These sinusoids are also lined by endothelium, just like capillaries, right? So they also have endothelium. Plus there are certain other ducts, certain other structure, vascular like structure, which are called as bile ducts. So in bile ducts, the hepatocytes produces bile and that is drained into the bile ducts, right? So you can see the green threads here are bile ducts, and the red are hepatic artery, and the blue are portal vein, and they all are draining into the hepatic vein, and the portal vein and the hepatic artery, they are draining into the central vein, and this central vein will form the hepatic vein. I hope it is not confusing. So let us see more. So see, once again, these hepatocytes, they produces bile and that is drained into the bile ductules, right? Then bile canaliculi, then ductules, then bile duct, right bile duct, left hepatic bile duct, and then common bile duct, and then the bile is drained into the intestine. Whereas the portal vein, right, the blood is coming from the intestines through the inferior mesenteric artery. It is coming, and it is inferior mesenteric artery, and it is coming from the spleen, it is coming from the esophagus, and it is draining, that blood is draining into the liver through the portal vein, right? And that portal vein and hepatic artery from the abdominal artery, right, they are draining blood into the central vein, right? So this is how. And these spaces are called as sinusoids, right? The spaces are called as sinusoids, where blood mixing is taking place from the hepatic artery and from the portal vein. The blood mixing is taking place, that those are called as sinusoids. Now why I'm focusing on these sinusoids? Because these sinusoids have a special cells called as Kupffer cells, right? Kupffer cells. And also below, so now this is the sinusoid. This is a picture from the from where? From Robbins' book. So this is the sinusoid which you have seen here, right? These sinusoids here, these sinusoids here are now sinusoids here. So these sinusoids are lined by endothelial cells, and these endothelial cells have Kupffer cells, and below this endothelial cells there is the liver parenchyma, and liver parenchyma has few collagen fibers, right? Few collagen fibers in normal healthy states. And apart from these collagen fibers, it also have stellate cells. Stellate cells. So remember these stellate cells, and these are hepatocytes. And in between hepatocytes, there are bile canaliculi, which carries the bile produced by the, or the bilirubin produced by the hepatocytes. So whenever there is repeated injury, right, because of the some toxic substances in the blood, right, because the sinusoids are having blood, this blue space is having blood flowing through it, and suppose if that blood is loaded with alcohol. Alcohol is a toxin to the hepatocyte. It damages the liver cells. So what will happen? It will damage the liver cells. It will activate the toxic substance. This toxic substance will damage the liver cells. It will cause the liver cell necrosis and apoptosis because of the toxin in the blood, right? And these cells, they will release certain cytokines, certain chemicals, which will cause the stellate cell to get activated, right? The stellate cells will get activated, and they will convert themselves into myofibroblasts. These activated stellate cells are called as myofibroblasts. These myofibroblasts will start producing certain extracellular matrix which are rich in collagen, right? In fibrin, they are rich in collagen and fibrin, and that will cause fibrosis. So these are the fibrous bands which we have talked earlier. So there will be deposition of extra fibrin in the liver parenchyma, and that will lead to the fibrin, excessive fibrin production, that will lead to the formation of fibrous bands, right? Fibrous bands around the hepatocytes, the remaining hepatocytes, right? So it will lead to liver fibrosis. So yeah, one more question was there, last slide. Yeah, so there was another question, that how in micronodular there will be, what is perivenular fibrosis and periportal fibrosis. So when these fibrotic bands, the excessive collagen and the fibrin deposition is around the portal region, we call it periportal fibrosis. When it is around the central vein, we call it perivenular fibrosis. And when it is bridging the these central veins, right? When it is bridging the central veins, we call it as bridging fibrous septus, right? So that's